Insurrectionist former president's schedule. It's going to offer a preview of the dual roles that he's going to take on in the year ahead as he leads the field of contenders in the Republican primary race, while also serving as the defendant in 4 criminal cases across 4 different jurisdictions. On Wednesday, the first GOP debate of this election cycle will take place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, though Trump himself will apparently be a no-show. NBC News has learned that the former president is planning to skip the debate in favor of doing an interview with Tucker Carlson in an apparent effort to draw attention away from Fox News, which is hosting the debate. However, it's not yet clear where and when that interview with Tucker Carlson will air, and there's even the remote possibility that Trump could change his mind at the last minute and participate in the debate after all. He technically has until tomorrow to decide. Now, regardless of whether or not he shows up, Trump's presence is going to be felt, since the issue of his electability in the face of multiple criminal indictments is one of the defining issues of this year's race. On the other hand, the one place where the former president is almost certain to be spotted this week is at the Fulton County Jail. Trump and his 18 other co-defendants in Georgia's sweeping election interference case have been given until noon on Friday to voluntarily surrender to authorities at the Atlanta area jail, and sources have told NBC News that the former president will turn himself in late next week. Headed by Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis, the expansive racketeering case has already caused ripple effects across the political spectrum. Trump's former White House chief of staff, Mark Meadows, who's largely been silent and out of the spotlight since leaving office 2.5 years ago, has acted quickly in response to his indictment in the Georgia case. Yesterday, his attorneys filed a motion to dismiss the charges, arguing in the brief that Meadows is protected from state prosecution due to presidential immunity. It's the second motion that Meadows has filed in the 6 days since the grand jury handed down the indictment. He's also seeking to move his case to federal court, a move that others are likely to try as well. Meanwhile, another defendant in the case is now facing possible suspension from public office for his role in the fake electors scheme. As alleged in the indictment, State Senator Sean Still was one of the 16 people who signed a fake document alleging that Trump had won the 2020 election in Georgia. Last week, he was among the 18 defendants charged alongside the former president in the election interference case, and his indictment brings a process that could ultimately result in his suspension from the state Senate. But Still isn't the only sitting public official in Georgia facing fallout from last week's charges. The state's current lieutenant governor, Burt Jones, was also one of Georgia's fake electors who signed the document alleging that Trump won. But the judge in the case previously ruled that the district attorney, Willis, couldn't indict him because of a conflict of interest. However, the prosecuting attorney's council, it's a state agency in Georgia that supports district attorneys in that state, has signaled that it will appoint a special prosecutor to determine if Jones should also face criminal charges. Joining me now is Hugo Lowell. He's a political investigations reporter for The Guardian. Hugo, it's a real pleasure. We've been talking to you all these years, but to actually have you in studio is fantastic. Thank you for your great reporting. There was some talk about Donald Trump holding a press conference tomorrow in which he said, and we've heard this kind of story before, he's going to refute the stuff that is in this document. Now, ironically, this document is the Georgia indictment. This document is the January 6th indictment. There's a lot of overlap, so I'm eager to know what he was going to present. Apparently, he's not going to do that now.
Well, I think Trump's aides also wanted to know what he was going to present because it was effectively, from what we understand, a plan that was freelanced to the political team and to Trump himself by one of the communications people on his team. And the idea was Liz Harrington, who is, I think, best described as someone who genuinely believes the 2020 election was stolen, kind of went to Trump and said, look, I have all this research, why don't I make a PowerPoint presentation or some sort of kind of speech about it? And Trump thought at the time it was a good idea until all of his lawyers and all of his political advisors were like, this is a terrible idea, not least because everything you are going to talk about is detailed in these indictments. And if you start discussing this now, this is the sort of thing where prosecutors will come back and pick out what you say and use it against you.
Well, Sean Hannity said the same thing the other day, and he's a big Trump supporter, and he said, better he just doesn't speak about these things because there are lots and lots and lots of specific charges and indictments. In order for him to get a fair trial of a jury of his peers, it may be best not to taint that jury pool. In fact, the January 6th judge, Tanya Chutkan, has said, if you continue to speak of these things, it may result in a faster trial so that you don't muck up the jury.
Yeah, and both things are to his detriment, right? And I don't know if Trump really internalized that when he was first considering it. But as you say, in the federal January 6th case,